1 hour to conclude. Yeah, that is the sound advice from the Office of the Chief Whip. It is not done out of favor, but out of consciousness that due diligence has to happen. Yes, we do not want you to come during the overview of evidence and point fingers at the committee and say, when I wanted to probe the following, you said no. Can we please go ahead? Banana. Oh, you are playing it. Did not play.
Honorable Chair, we're just waiting for the recording to be. Shall we, Honorable Chair, shall we have permission to proceed in the meantime? Thank you. General Mkhwanazi, you okay?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
You're still under oath?
Yes, sir.
General Mkhwanazi, a number of witnesses came before this committee, and we will now deal with the ones we have not dealt with in your earlier evidence. We will start with Mr. Paul O'Sullivan. When he came before this committee, he testified that you do not have security clearance, and this is at paragraph 72 of his statement. Before you answer that question, General Masemola took us through the process, the vetting process, and the difficulties that SAPS deals with in trying to obtain the security clearance. However, we have to put the question to you. Do you have security clearance?
The answer is no, I still do not have.
Could you perhaps tell this committee when was the last time you had security clearance and what is the status?
Honorable Chair and members, the crime intelligence, which is part of the problems that we hear, under the leadership of Major General Khan, manages vetting section. In the vetting section, when the security clearance are done, you have to disclose everything about you. Where were you born, where you grew up, the primary school you went to, your friends, family, relatives, bank accounts, and everything about you, assets you own and so forth. It is that office that controls things. On the record, Honorable Chair, the members, my last security clearance, top secret clearance that I had expired in 2018. It expired in 2018. In 2013, I submitted an application to State Security. State Security did everything, polygraph, everything, tick the box, but they could not issue that because there is Foster, who's an IPID person in KZN, who said to SSA at the time that there's a case of, I'm told, a hit squad or something like that that happened in KZN in 2013 that I'm implicated in. I've never worked in KZN in 2013. I was working in Pretoria. So that's the reason why SSA did not issue another clearance at the time. And nobody came with a feedback. I made an application to Crime Intelligence. It's on record, this. In 2022, today it's not finalized. Crime Intelligence, according to the file that is with the Divisional Commissioner, is that they themselves are coming up with stories. One of the stories that Sunday World wrote a story about an allegations against a case investigated by IDEC against me. They apparently confirmed with Advocate Johnson, who wrote back on an email and said, yes, indeed, IDEC is investigating. The question again, how did IDEC get to investigate stories? How did they get, who referred that thing to them? Why am I not told about it? That's one. Two, there's a case allegedly that was open in Sinoville in Pretoria, where I was accused of interfering with the investigation. And the people accused, there is Patlane's wife, I don't know who's the third person. Again, nobody have ever come to me about it. This is 22, back then. Again, there's a case open, I think in Brooklyn and Pretoria, if I'm not mistaken, of a car hijacking. I'm the suspect. When they went to check, I was not even there when it happened. So these allegations of cases that they say they cannot finalize the clearance because of these pending. I'm told that the division have written to IPID more than 3 times to ask them to explain these cases. So once there's something flagged, it's a reason not to give you a clearance certificate. So that's a deliberate thing done within there. And it does not affect me alone. There's many of us. It is that office that Gerald Khan was controlling, is still controlling, that does vetting, that will make sure. That's why Paul O'Sullivan is going to know about it, being an outsider, that there is no clearance certificates because they are feeding him with that information.
Okay. Thank you, General. So General, it looks like these cases are, this issue that you have is a historical issue. It dates back to 2022 and we are now in 2026. What is the status of that case? And is there possibly anything that you could do or anybody can do to assist you with finalization of those cases? Because surely it cannot be the reason why you still don't have security clearance.
I'm not in charge of the organization, but if I was in charge of the organization, I would have removed the whole lot that is sitting in that vetting section, starting with Khan, because they are the ones. The whole file of Gerald Patlane that started that criminal investigation on the house was initiated from the files that were stolen by McBride's girlfriend from that office. So it's a dirty office. So we might want as parliamentarians to start asking yourself a question. How honest is the office of vetting in the police and many other entities? How honest that office is? Because the officials working there, you give them information, they verify, they interrogate you, they bring you for polygraphy, they throw you questions, and they satisfy themselves that you're a good person. They make recommendations. But when these things are supposed to be finalized, someone stalls it. They stole it because a Sunday World published something. They don't have to verify it. As long as they can't issue. And you write to IPID, IPID won't respond. So maybe IPID must then explain. For all these reminders, because from what I know I have no case. They just threw my name in it. So it looks like my name is just flagged. That's why even Nangi's case up there. I was part of the torture, I was part of, so they threw cases all over. That's how the system operates nowadays.
Thank you, General. The follow-up question to that is, if you don't have security clearance, are you then able to access the secret fund? That is at paragraph 73 of Mr. O'Sullivan's statement.
What does he say on the paragraph specifically?
He says that you are not permitted to access the secret fund without security clearance.
You know, Paul O'Sullivan is an old
comment?
man. And I mean, as a Zulu man being cultured from the rural areas, it's not going to be a good thing to speak bad about an old person. He was fragile when I saw him sitting here. He's an old man. but the things that comes out of his mouth is problematic. Serious problematic. I'm prefacing the response to your question that how does he get to know about these things as a civil servant? That's a start. But number two, I do not work at crime intelligence. I don't get involved with secret fund at all, zero. In a matter of fact, when I was acting in 2011, 2012, the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence only got to see me on passages. The first time I ever walked into the office here of the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence, it's now after this whole saga of July 6th. Before that, I never interacted with them because it's not my role. It was never my role. I respected that the head of intelligence is the one that must account there. Head of intelligence is the one that must control the farms. Head of intelligence is the one who must run the operations of intelligence. I've never been involved with secret fund account. I've never done it. And I said to Jaru Kumar, maybe inviting the committee, talking to your colleagues at JCI, because he speaks about a 30 million rand worth of vehicles that were bought, and he calls it luxury cars in 2012 when I was acting. Those vehicles are the sedan, small cars that were bought for operational members. The sedan, the luxury vehicles that he mistaken with are the luxury vehicles that I collected from people that were not supposed to be driving. Generals of the police, Q5s, the late Minister Mtetwa, the ML with a wheel at the back. A whole lot of those cars. I took all those, I gave it to Task Force and TRT because they were used. Luxury cars were bought, used by people that are not supposed. Then we took the money and we bought it for the operational members on the ground. So he's been fed information, but he interprets it wrongly.
Okay, thank you, General. Just still on the secret fund, for the basis of clarity, are you able to, you've testified that you're not in crime intelligence, but is it correct that one cannot access the secret fund if they don't have clearance certificate?
I must repeat again, I don't work at crime intelligence, but I can give you the real fact of the situation that we have in the SAPS. A security clearance certificate is valid for 5 years and it expires. The rule that we currently have in the police is that the post get advertised, you apply for the post and you go for interviews, you complete that form for you to be vetted, you get appointed pending that vetting. In some instances, people start working without the vetting being finalized. In some instances, you don't work until your security clearance is issued. It depends where you're at. But after 5 years, even after you've received it, it expires. It means you must then, at least a year before, submit a new application. But because of the demand in the organization, over 100,000 members that must be vetted, the resources that crime intelligence has in terms of human resources that must conduct investigations on these applications is not enough. It's not sufficient. So that results to the expiry of this security clearance certificate. Mine expired in 2018. They cannot explain to you to date why I have not been issued with one, beside these cases. But just to process that administration process, it has taken that long because of the delays, the workload that they have. They can't keep up with it. It causes a delay. So once a person working at crime intelligence, like Gerald Khan, his vetting clearance certificates, as I'm talking to you now, have expired. But as I'm talking to you now, he's at crime intelligence. I like to believe he does have access to the secret fund account. And he's not the only one. There are many of them that their vetting have expired, but they do access. The how part, how they manage that, I'm sure JCI can explain it. I can't explain it because I'm not in that space.
Thank you very much, General. Now moving on to the last question from Mr. O'Sullivan's statement. There's an allegation that you recruited a number of young men in KZN through a man called Baba Mtetwa. That affidavit, that statement of one of the recruits has been made available to you for your consideration. In that state, it's a redacted statement, so we do not know the identity of the young man. All we know about him is that he's a young black man. he was recruited to be part of an operation that you were doing. Some of the allegations that he made was that he was taken to an unknown location to himself, where he was, they got some type of training over a 3-day period. He was paid on 2 occasions amounts of 50,000 Rand each. And finally, the third amount was 120,000 before doing any sort of work. Thirdly, they were then together with a group of other boys men that would have been recruited, were given police uniform, which on them do not have police rankings or identity of a police officer, but the uniform mirrored the police uniform. One of the operations that he says in his statement they had to do was in Mkhwanazi, where unarmed it was a drug operation, unarmed young teenagers were killed. And they then had to leave, but before leaving, you arrived to come and assess the situation and plant evidence. What is your comment to that allegation made by Mr. O'Sullivan?
Honorable Chair and members, as I say again, Mr. Paul O'Sullivan is an elder, but is saying a lot of wrong things. I saw that redacted statement, and we then requested from the Provincial Commission to investigate whether was there ever a case open as such. The member that commissioned that statement gave her own statement to indicate, yes, there's a gentleman that came with Paul O'Sullivan and asked for the statement to be commissioned, which she did. And from there they left. So, but he cannot even remember the name of the person and stuff like that. That was, I don't know which day it was. He comes here and he presents this thing before you. He doesn't go to a police station to open a case, so he doesn't encourage this person to go and open a case on those allegations. What I did after that, I contacted with the station commander of Mkhwanazi to confirm these multiple matters, because there's been a lot of shooting incident that has been happening in that police station over time. And the station commander said in that month of August, there was only one multiple murder that was registered in 2024 under the case number. And it does not correspond to the story that this Paul O'Sullivan and his unknown complainant saying. So I don't want sometimes to waste energy and argue and disown things that people are making allegations on and they cannot come and confirm. Let the person who opened the case go to the police station, open a case so it can be investigated. Alternatively, you must come to this committee and present the evidence. But as the head of the police in KwaZulu-Natal, police in KwaZulu-Natal have been involved in a lot of shootings. And many people have not been happy about that. And it's not one police officer, it's not one team, but all those that have been involved are police officers. So if this person says that he was not a police officer, he was recruited, they are making up the story to try and convince the committee to believe that there's bad things happening in KZN. Similar people that will sell stories to Meriti Haas, amongst others, then make them to believe certain things. That's why to date, you hear for any action, shooting, whatever, is PKTT.
Perhaps
Those are the stories.
I'm sorry, General. You can.
No, it's fine. I'm just saying that stories have been fabricated, so there's nothing of that sort in KZN.
Okay.
You can
Perhaps,
investigate.
perhaps what we should do is, leaving aside Mr. O'Sullivan and just asking the question slightly more directly. Are you involved in operations of this nature as alleged?
Not at all.
Did you make payments of 50,000, 250,000 batches plus 120,000 to various people who were doing operations?
That's wrong. I did not.
Okay. So you have no knowledge of this, even?
I don't have knowledge, and I like to believe that it doesn't exist.
Okay. If we can then maybe play the clip if it's ready.
Nah, yes, and
Hey.
I'm giving you my honest opinion, unfiltered. Ne?
Yeah.
Le team yabo,
Mm.
igijima ngento wrong
Yeah.
under the guise of of this task team.
Nathi sikhona lapha
Honestly,
siyaphandwa lapha siyaphenywa lapha.
yabona general.
Mm.
And ngiyacabanga ukuthi eNatali, I'm sure busy because this is where these things are cooked. What I find embarrassing, and you know, when I talk to people, sometimes they are complicit to crime being committed.
Yeah.
Which have been complicit because sengicala ngalo lo wakakhuma lo sebenza nabo
Yeah.
ne
Yeah.
le mfana bekayi constable nini ngise HRD ngoba warrant ngoba
Yeah.
captain seka uKennel but uhamba la khamba khona uLucky
Oh, ulakhe lo muphi?
uLucky umkhwanazi.
Oh.
So at some point there was into engathi bayarelate baze bayafana futhi ngathi they relate.
Oh, fana nomkhwanazi.
Yeah, kakhulu futhi. So
And uyena lo suspect ukuthi uthathe imali.
hayi ukuthi suspector uye lo uNPA ethatha imali but
Ngithumela ushabalala.
manje into engayi understand ne ukuthi abakhuluma like bakhuluma ngathi benza into eziright like mina bese mina kuthi generally ngafunda ukuthi uba isilima kuyanceda yabona ngoba mawusuka ubabonisa ukuthi uyabona kula wenza khona izitha so rather abacabanga ukuthi uhleli la abacabanga ukuthi uhleli khona but it's the same young Khumalo uyo busy. I asked him the other day ngimbonise ngathi ufunani la bathi kimi ukuthatha ngathi ungacishe ngawo cishe ngathi hawu so umkhwanazi ukuthumele ngala
ugijima ngami lo.
so uthunyiwe because trust me at some point he was his driver ne mara ukuthi nje yela ungambona ufana no Lucky at some point I can't remember wathi no ngathi bayahlobana yabona. So I understand ukuthi le team wayengakhona ukuwa sorry but it is because khona udoti nje abawuphushayo that I can tell you because yini into enzima that's why ngithi mina tomorrow sibize ukuthi ama docket if I say court there's no need for team ukuthi hlala yenzani if I case ya court niyabizwa niyasapuna nama witnesses you understand niya on that day hayi ukuthi kumele lihlale ngathi nilinde.
I think uconsultant no Lucky wathi no amadokedo amalethela kimi
but akakwazi angisho kune instruction general
ukuthi aye kuwe.
yes
Yebo.
so which is why ngithi mina yabona ukuthi without ukuthi siveze ukuthi mina ngime kuphi asiyenza official ukona usibize nje uthi hayi mina instruction general Sinthumule give me feedback yebo.
Yeah, ngizombiza but angithi uzongitshela nje anginikeza iexcuse ukuthi akekho local. Or ukuphi angithi ubonile ukuthi yena siya attend wonke umuntu uyattenda yena akaveli yena.
Ufonile nje ubalasha ama documents ngathi mina sonke base size khona John ukuba wathi yena hayi ucela ukuhlala office. Ngathi mina kumnandi kuba ngoba wena uvunyelwe uyabona.
Yena ubusy uyazi ngokutshela babusy bagijima ngami left right and center hot monitoring. Basizama amafoni wami ngapha nangapha ngiyathola konke lokho yabo.
But into ebuhlungu general ne ukuthi umgodi mina ngafunda ukuthi umgodi mawugubha akungeni lo mgubhela ngena wena.
Iproblem ukuthi ngihlala nomphathi wami ongathi akazi lutho kodwa uyazi okungiye. Ngicela ukuphendula lokho lengenayo tu.
Okay general mina tekele sharp general.
General, just for the sake of the record, who are the persons that are speaking on that clip?
It's General Sinthumule and General Sibia.
If you can just summarize perhaps what is the content, the basis of their conversation?
The base of the conversation is regarding the case dockets and the investigation that the team is doing in KZN, which is PKTT. And the fact that Sentumule is in support of these dockets being moved away from KZN. He's even encouraging Jarasbia to invite both her and Kumalo to the college to come and account. So she seems to be the master of why these dockets came to her, according to the conversation they're having.
Lieutenant General Sintimula came before this committee and she testified that she did not even know how the dockets arrived in Gauteng, and she did not even see them. Now, I'd like to take you to specific parts of her affidavit, just in light of what we have heard on the clip. General Sintimule was responsible for the disbandment plan that related to the dockets. And part of the plan was that the dockets had to be transferred from KZN to Gauteng. She was questioned by this committee as to, firstly, is she aware who gave the instruction for the dockets to be transferred? She testified that it was not her. She also testified that you were quite unhappy, and this can be found at paragraph 60 of her affidavit, where she says, accordingly, on 24 April 2025, I telephonically engaged Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi and requested that we arrange for the handover of the PKTT dockets to the murder and robbery unit in KZN. Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi was, however, confused by the request, as he was not aware of what I was talking about. I informed him about the disbandment of the PKTT and that one of the actions on the implementation plan was that all the dockets under investigation should be handed over to serious and violent crimes in KwaZulu-Natal. She then further stated that you declined to accept the dockets. And one of the things that you are said to have said is that waze wangimoshela ilanga, General. Are you aware of this conversation with General Sintimule? And what are your comments in relation to what we've now heard on the clip?
Yeah, well, General Sintimule did call me, and understand that they had tried to get the members under my command, to collect these dockets. And those members said, we're not taking anything, not unless the provincial commissioner tells us that. And she then contacted me, and she informed me that there are case dockets that are in Pretoria that must be brought to KZN. So I inquired, what dockets are those? And she said, it's PKTT dockets. And so I was surprised, and I asked, but how did these dockets get to Pretoria? Who are they in Pretoria? He said they're in their office. So I asked, but what are they doing there? Then he said, but don't you know, didn't they tell you that the docket, Charles Bia gave instruction, this docket must come to Pretoria? So I was concerned. I said, no, I don't know anything about the docket. So if you take the dockets to Pretoria, then you must see how you're going to deal with those dockets, because nobody told me about dockets going to Pretoria. So subsequent to that, I then sanctioned the team that is investigating PKTT to come to my office to give me a presentation to confirm what I'm hearing. Upon confirming, I then contacted Jal Kumar. I even wrote to Jal Kumar to establish that you are explaining to me, General, about how it came about, but I want it in black and white. So that's how the communication officially started, that coming back to me. But she did tell me that. So in listening to this recording, and I'm grateful that you know, when there's no peace amongst thieves, you will see what you see. Because General Sbia recorded Sintumule. Otherwise, we were not going to know about this truth. And she then ran around after this recording was given to her before the Edo committee, before the Madlanga commission. And she ran to the National Commission, I'm told, she ran to Jarukumala to try and justify her action. She has not spoken to me to date because she knows that she cannot approach me. I guess the only time we're going to talk is when there's an investigation somewhere where I need to come and testify if there's anything that I'm involved with. But this, I brought to this Edo committee to show the committee that what you see might not necessarily be the truth. This is a person who came in and presented herself as a good person. But this is what she's busy with. I don't have the date when this recording happened, Maybe it was shortly after the instruction or it was prior to the instruction, but from this recording, I deduct that she knew about the letters that are written by SBA. Perhaps she might have been the author of those letters. Maybe she compiled the letters on behalf of SBA. I do not know.
Okay, perhaps maybe we can then go to the next paragraph where she says, on the 25th of April, she called the National Commissioner and informed him of your discussion and the serious reservations that you had. I remember saying to the National Commissioner that there was no way that we could disband the task team and replace it with another task team, as that would make no operational sense. The National Commissioner advised that I engage with the DNC and he must decide on what to do with the dockets. The National Commissioner testified that at some point he told the DNC that he heard that the dockets were at head office and instructed that the dockets be returned to their station of origin. I suppose when I called him to give him feedback of my conversation with Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi, the National Commissioner realized that the dockets were still at head office. Hence, he said, your boss should decide what to do with those dockets. Now, listening to the clip again, and now knowing that General Sentimule and General Sibiya were speaking with one voice in respect of the dockets and not necessarily what this committee was informed. What is your comment regarding General Sentimule's role in ensuring that the dockets reach the destination where they are supposed to, as instructed by the National Commissioner?
Oh, I had listened to Gerald Kumalo when he said Gerald Sentimule kept coming to his office and he will take a cell phone and take a picture of boxes that were lying in the office before the dockets came, so that she can send it to SBA as an assurance that the dockets are here, which was a lie. That's what Kumalo told me, that she will take photos and send to SBA. I said, no, I've fetched the dockets, because she was getting this pressure from SBA. Subsequent to that, the dockets were delivered. So that's why I said again, Sentimule cannot be trusted. I could not trust her in 2012. That's why I removed her from crime intelligence. I cannot trust her now when she appears before these two commissions. And what surfaces after that is this recording. So it's a person that you need to trust with your own, risk your own life to trust. Otherwise, I still don't understand how she ended up being in the position that she's in the organization.
Lastly, on General Sentimule, Lieutenant General Sentimule said that in response to this clip, she was using counterintelligence. Perhaps not, it may not be in response to this clip, but in response to her attitude towards Sibiya, she used counterintelligence because she realized that she was not going to get far. What is your comment to that?
That's why I'm a police officer and she's not. Because I'm a police officer, deal with facts and deal with things, not counter and make stories. So her whole career profession is intelligence. So if that what she was doing is fine, but in terms of the evidence before us on a criminal investigation, she did not disclose that what she did, which means she was part of the wrong. It's a clip that is going to make its way now to the team that is investigating the movement of this docket. She was never a suspect, but I'm now presenting to the team because it's a new evidence that we picked up that we thought she was not part of. All along, we're blaming SB alone, not knowing there's a player behind. So this is a person, I don't know in her statement what she gave about a profile career in the organization, but it's a person that has been moving up and down. This side promotion, this side promotion, that side promotion all the time. But I don't know how she got it right. But it's one of those that maybe as we conclude here, we need to then start talking about some reforms in the organization because she arrived and she ended up being a lieutenant general heading both crime investigation currently and forensic service, the heart of policing.
Thank you, General. I'd like to now move on to Mr. McBride's affidavit. Mr. McBride, testified that Mr. Mandla Mahlangu and Mr. Kuba, who were IPID investigators, they submitted a statement to him regarding your involvement in trying to get him out of IPID. The allegation there is that you wanted these two investigators to frame him of wrongdoing so that he can be removed from IPID. What is your comment to that?
It is false. And there are a lot of false things that Robert McBride came and presented here. One of them was that I was not even in a funeral of the late Mahlangu. So it's a story that he made up out of his own, because he just didn't see me talking in a funeral. To him, I was not there. Maybe you should ask Ms. Wakembole where I was.
Okay. Before we get to the funeral, General, because that was going to be my next question, perhaps let me give a little bit more detail regarding the statement. This offer that you made to the IPID, you allegedly made to the IPID investigators, was in exchange for a brigadier rank. If we could just deal specifically with that first before we talk about the late Mandla Mahlangu.
Okay, well, first, maybe let me start here. I don't know when date that he's talking about that I made that offer. I've said that allegations are false. There was never such. But I had heard in the process that from Mahlangu, that there was some intervention from someone from crime intelligence and on issues that they were investigating. I just cannot remember the name, but there were some interferences that were happening at the time. It might be mistaken me for that person. I'm not sure. But as far as I'm concerned, I have never interfered with anything.
Amongst the cases that you testified about, which are at IPID or IDAC, has there been a complaint regarding this very thing that we are talking about?
You know what is strange for me is that there's not even a single of any of the case where Mkhwanazi was ever invited to give a warning statement or being interviewed on anything. And these cases, they date back more than 5 years ago. The story is about the case against you, but not a single person has ever come to me and say, Mkhwanazi, give us your version. What happened here? The least I could say, I know of investigation. The only one ever that I was approached was last year when Minister Mkhunu, allegedly, according to what was in black and white on the letter from IPID, laid a complaint with IPID on a matter of Impangeni. That was the time when IPID wrote to me to give a statement to explain myself. Before that, there was never, to date. So I can't necessarily talk about cases that I was never confronted with. I don't know. They will make stories about cases. Like many other people can make stories about cases, but nobody has ever come to me to say, there is this case against you.
Thank you, General. If we can now then deal with Mr. Mandla Mahlangu. How did you know Mr. Mahlangu?
You know, the late Mahlangu, may so rest in peace. The sad part is that we're talking about the person when he's not here. And it is a culture of the intelligence community to always make reference to the deceased because they cannot talk to for themselves. The late Mahlangu, I got to know him because of his brother. I met his brother at TUT when we were studying there, who was a brigadier in the police. So we were close with him. He was working at DPCI at one stage until he left the police. So I got to know Mahlangu Mandla through him. That's how I got to know Mandla. I got to know Cedric Kabinde through Mandla because I was not necessarily friends with them. My friend was their elder brother, his elder brother, who was in the police at the time. So the incident of Mahlangu then happens. The brother is working in Mpumalanga at the time. The incident happens in a plot. I don't know the plot. I was never been in the plot. So the brother calls me and he says, my brother has been shot. He gives me the location to come and attend. He is driving from Mpumalanga coming in. I lived in Montana in Pretoria at the time. So the plot is not far from Montana. So I drove from Montana to go to the plot, to the crime scene. That's how I arrived at the crime scene. I didn't even know where the place was. Fast forward, the members of the National Intervention Unit, they assisted with the investigation of the arrest of a person that was identified to have been a shooter. The person is arrested. The members are interrogating this person, and this person tells them that we shot this one and we acted as if it's a robbery. We took this thing to a particular house somewhere here. We left it there, and according to the vehicle, we drove back to Joburg. And I was paid so much money. It's a policeman that coordinated this thing. But to date, there's nobody else been arrested on that case except the shooter. So we believe that there are people that were behind it, that hired this man from Johannesburg to come and do the job. The funeral is held. I'm in that funeral for Mr. McBride. I sat in a front seat on that funeral. But he didn't even see me. I don't know what he had in his eyes. I was in a graveyard. He didn't see me in a graveyard. I went back home after the graveyard. And I was not alone. I was there with my wife. So this is a man who talks things he doesn't know about, and he starts making allegations. I still believe today there's something behind the murder of Mahlangu. Perhaps we mustn't look too far. We must look closer to the people that he was working with at IPID. I suspect something there with those that were closer to him.
General, you are a police officer with many years' experience, and I'm not sure whether to couch what you've just said as an allegation or perhaps creating some type of suspicion. What informs that question? Perhaps you can just comment about that. Why do you say that? Why should that be probed?
It is because the information I received from the National Intervention Unit members that interrogated a killer. So, but when the investigation is done, the people that the killer were making a reference to are not arrested. The killer is arrested. I think is convicted. But the people behind it, they have not been charged to date. So I believe that it's a case, whoever that is selling the docket in Gauteng, that remain unsolved in my eyes. And that's why I'm saying I suspect the crew that was around Mahlangu all the time, whether on his private capacity or at work. So when you hear some issues that were happening at the workplace, you also start to asking question mark whether couldn't have been compromised at work. Perhaps there's a possibility there.
If we can then go to Mr. Nkabinde's statement. The ad hoc committee has heard that Mr. Nkabinde participated in meetings where the disbandment of the PKTT were discussed. What was his participation in the implementation of the disbandment plan and his relationship with the minister?
I must say, Honorable Chair and members, I was not in those meetings, so I cannot talk much about the role of Nkabinde except what I read and what I hear about. But other than that, I don't know. The relationship with the minister, I know it was as a result of a murder case that happened in KZN.
Could you expand on that? Mr. McBride testified that whilst he was at IPID, he did an intervention. He visited the minister. He was not the minister at the time, Minister Mkhwanazi, together with Mr. Cedric Nkabinde. Is that the complaint you are referring to, or are you referring to something else?
That is the one that he talks about, that the two of them went there, because that's what Nkabinde told me.
What is your comment to that?
I strongly believe, Honorable Chair and members, that there is something criminal that was hidden by IPID that might have implicated the minister. Underline my words, might have. I'm not saying it implicated him. But I believe, why do I say that? It cannot be that the police walks into your door. They come to investigate. And from there, you become friends in a manner that Nkabinde and minister are this close. From that, it's unbelievable. They are operating completely different levels. It made me believe that what made the relationship between the two of them, it's what Nkabinde told me, they became close as a result of that visit. There might have been something that might have been a cover-up. It is a murder case that involved one of the protectors of the minister when he was a premier. The person is killed. His exhibit are found. One of the exhibits is a cell phone. The cell phone is kept as a deceased property at the police station. It is alleged that a protector of the minister, another protector instructed by the minister, went to collect that phone because the phone had some evidence in it that might link other people. So he went to collect that phone. So when there was a complaint about that, it is that complaint that led to IPID, because a police officer has defeated. The case is open against the police officer, not against the minister, against the police officer. The police officer packs his bag, he ran out of the police. It disappeared because he should be charged. He goes. So when this investigation is given to IPID, IPID meets up because they pick up that this member, when he went to fetch this place, he was told, he was tasked by the premier at the time. That's why they went to the premier to say, Premier, we are told you're the one that gave instruction. The relationship is built from there. But that case doesn't go anywhere. A police officer that had left the service, when the minister becomes a minister at public service, the minister come back into the police. He's currently working with him. You'll see him one day when he comes in.
The evidence that you gave just now, General, contradicts what the head of IPID, Mr. McBride, testified when he was here in relation to that case. His testimony, even though I'm paraphrasing now, his testimony was that they had visited, he was in KZN for something completely unrelated. And because he was already in KZN, he was asked by Mr. Nkabinde if they could go and see, at the time, Mr. Mkhunu. I think he may have been the premier or he may not have been in office, in Mpangeni at his home. But the issue was regarding his protector who had passed, and there was no progress on the investigation on the passing or on the murder of his protector. He subsequently hired a private investigator to look into the matter. And in looking into that matter, I think the Hawks may have then got involved in the matter, but it had nothing to do with a cell phone. Is this now the evidence that you are giving this committee to say, in fact, there was a cell phone which was removed and it led to a case of defeating the ends of justice? Is that what we are now, the evidence that you are leading?
Honorable members, when I was here last time, I told you about the relationship with me and Kabinde, how I got to the minister's house. Kabinde came here, he tried to twist how we got into the minister's house. I testified about knowing Kabinde and Kabinde, how he was appointed at the minister's office. I came in and testified about Kabinde, how what he had told me about the operations of IPID that involves Paul O'Sullivan and Robert McBride in a house in Sentin. He came here, he confirmed that. So all the things I've been telling you is what Kabinde told me. And two of them, at least, we can say now comfortable, he said with his own mouth. What was not asked on him is about this case. This is what he told me. I was not involved in the case. I don't know the details about it. I still don't even know the case number, but that's what he told me. Because the question was, how did you become close to the minister? He said, we were investigating. And I asked, then what happened to the investigation? He said, no, we couldn't find anything wrong with the minister. But that's where the relationship started. That's what he told me with his own mouth. That led in one stage to invite me to go and meet with the minister. Later, he says we went on a boys' trip. You know what is an interesting thing, Honorable Chair members? That day he came to the house. I told him that it's late, I'm going to drive, and you drive in my car. Not my car, my wife's car. My wife's controlled the tracker in that car. How stupid can Mkhwanazi be going boys' trip with the wife's car that has got a tracker? We left, we drove there. It was late at night. I didn't have time to call the protector, so I drove myself. I had to do a tactical driving on the road getting there. The tracking device is available for this committee to download if you want. With the details of the car, the starting of the engine in Durban and Mhlanga, the switching off the engine at the minister's house at Mpangeni, the starting off the engine in Mpangeni, switching off at Mhlanga. We didn't stop on any toll gates because there's e-tag in that car. So for Kabinde to come here and try and justify that we were going somewhere and we passed at the minister is false. Tracker records would prove that. It's a car that belongs to my wife that I was driving. So it's just an indication that people would fabricate things. So Kabinde said to me, we flew with McBride, landed in Durban, and we drove to Mpange to see the minister. The date when they traveled probably was using a state budget. If we go on records of IPID, we should be able to get the records, whether did they travel on that day, what the state paid, the flight bookings. If McBride says he did not fly, we will be able to get evidence. So I'll invite the committee to go and investigate that. It's a record. If the state mandate was used, bookings of flights were done, and if McBride had traveled before that, he must indicate how did he travel. And to throw those records, you'll be able to get the truth.
Thank you, General. Just lastly on that point, is it common for an executive member, like the head of IPID, to visit a home of a complainant in dealing with the matter?
Well, I don't think there's anything prescribed in writing that you may or may not. So I like to believe, as a head of investigation at IPID, you might have all the right to visit the home of or visit the complainant in any other place where he wants to meet with the complainant. You might assist with investigation and so forth. I don't know.
Okay. And I think my leader has taken you on this regarding Mlodra, Mr. Sergeant Mlodra, who was here, and Mr. Nangi. I don't intend to take you through that evidence. The only follow-up I have on that is regarding the house, the guest house that belongs to Sergeant Mlodra, which was burnt in Mpumalanga. In relation to that, Mr. Mlodra testified last Friday that police officers from where he lives, I just need to find the exact name, were sent over, and they did find as officials who said they were from KZN, even though they don't have the specific names of those officers, but they did confirm that they visited the home. So that's not really in dispute. And I think you also confirmed same that Sonona did tell you that his team went. What is new evidence is that DNA that was done to test the area showed that Mr. Zachariah Desai, who was the individual who was kidnapped, they found DNA, his DNA at the house. But what we also know is that the house was burnt a couple of hours after the police officers had visited. Just if you could perhaps confirm when was this DNA taken, and when were those results submitted? And are we able to find them on a docket or somewhere?
Honorable
Please guide us.
Yeah, Honorable Chair, you see me looking on the phone because I was sending the team the video footage of the house, alleged fire before and after the times there, but it looks like quite a long video. I'm not sure if they'll be able to play it for you to see. The entire investigation is done by DPCI, not me and not my team. So the feedback and update I receive, I get it from Jairus Nona. So I don't necessarily have much of the details as to what is it. My interest is, here's a kidnapped person been found, here's a perpetrator has been found. The details of how they go about, he keeps updating me on some of the things. That's why I cannot tell you, point by point, hour by hour, what was happening throughout. I can only share that which was shared with me. That's what I spoke about it earlier. So in as far as that team going there, what time did they get there? For instance, I didn't know from looking at the video, it looks like they arrived at night. What time did this guy come back into South Africa from Mozambique? And when was the date? I didn't necessarily go into details to check that. But what I know is that they came there, they left, a house burned. When you look at the video, you see police cars, although not clear because it's lights, and from the lights disappears, and later fire comes up, and later the fire subsides and the fire brigade comes in, or a medical response comes in. That's what you can see on the video. If it can be played, you'll be able to see that.
Okay.
But anything else surrounding that house, even the DNA, I was informed that
Okay.
there was a DNA discovered. What is done before or after, I don't know.
Okay.
Which part of the house burned, which one did not burn, where the DNA might have been found, I do not know.
Yeah, to be fair to you, General, you did testify that you were not present at all in Mpumalanga. I suppose the question was because of the evidence you gave that DNA was taken, but you've now confirmed that you received that information from General Sinono.
The investigation team also updated me about it.
Okay. If you could perhaps furnish us with those details. Thank you, General. Maria. Thank you, Chairperson.
It's just one or two more questions that we'd like to ask General Mkhwanazi in relation to the third directive of the minister. So I think General has covered quite a lot, and the intention was to allow the General to respond to each item of the directive. And I think the remaining item is the moratorium on crime intelligence that's also part of the memorandum. And under this particular heading, General, you've mentioned Major General Khan, and my colleague has asked you about your vetting in crime intelligence, and you've mentioned General Khan as a big obstacle, and that past and present divisional commissioners has had a challenge to get their vetting clearances. And I think it begs the question that I first would like to establish, because I think the name keeps coming up, and not much has really been said about him in the ad hoc committee until I think today, really. So if you could maybe just explain to the committee what the relationship or what General Khan's role is, first of all, in crime intelligence, and then maybe also the relationship, because I think in the memorandum, what is suggested that there is a relationship that General Khan has with politicians and members of parliament. If you could also maybe just speak to that.
I said when I started earlier, honorable members, that some of our politicians, yourselves as leaders of society, you get thrown into the wrong that we do. And you get trapped into that. And you end up siding with them when they do wrong. Crime intelligence has always had this type of people that are evil, that do wrong, but they make use of the people in high position, in powerful position, to manipulate. I cite General Khan here for few reasons. One of them is that, and this is something that comes from his own mouth to me at times. Maybe before that, we have seen an amendment of regulations in the South African Police Service over time. Police regulations, employment to be specific, and ranks. To the extent that the ministers in the past changed these regulations because they were influenced by certain things. Minister Mkhwanazi, the late, went against the Constitution of the Republic, where the Constitution says there shall be commissioners in the police. By Minister Mkhwanazi at the time, introduced the rank titles of generals. We are generals today. But the Constitution doesn't call us generals, it calls us commissioners. Regulations were amended, that violates the law. That is but one example. Other ministers came after that. We know of how Minister Mkhwanazi benefited the wall that was built in his house by crime intelligence. We know the former president with a swimming pool in his house, justified by crime intelligence that it is a fire pool, amongst others. We know of the new regulations that have been published by the former Minister Mbalula, where he then says, I'm taking these powers away from the act that says the National Commissioner must appoint. But the minister says you shall not appoint on senior management, not unless you consult me. That's what Mr. Mkhwanazi used to freeze this post. It's a regulation against the act. It's the powers that the minister granted themselves that do not belong to them. Because the act does not give them those powers, but they took them through the regulations. Minister Mbalula, when he first changed these regulations, he was responding to what he deemed as an abuse that was happening in the police. We had a Lieutenant General Motiba that was acting. A person who joined the service in 1991, Major General Khan, was promoted overnight to become, from a colonel, to become a major general without advertising a position, and he skipped the rank of a brigadier. There was no justification for that. So, but Motiba felt he must promote him from this rank to this rank. And Khan became a general. We are calling him general today because of that. But
sorry, Chair, if I may, apologies for interrupting you, General. May I ask just
Yeah, I think allow him to conclude the response, and you will come up, because she just asked a very short question.
100%.
Yeah.
so Major General Khan get promoted by General Motiba at the time, obviously with the support of the HR. But then I think the minister was upset about that. It looks like there were some things that intelligence were doing that might have been used as a reward to Khan, which the minister was opposed to. Then the minister, through secretariat, decided to change the regulations. And from that time, we had to then go via the minister for us to fill the vacancies. Again, changes because of Khan. He had worked in different areas until this PSS division was started and he became part of it. It is there where he became closer to politicians. I'm sure majority of the people that are in the building, let me not say the African National Congress, honorable members, but the people that are within that building of the headquarters of the ANC knows Khan very well because he brags about it. He moves up and down that building. Members of EFF will come and say they know Khan very well because he's very tight with the lead of EFF. So Khan is this person who has played politics to get his way. And that's a danger that Khan brings into the picture. I said he's in charge of counterintelligence in the police. He was in charge of the vetting section where all the profiles of everyone sits. So he's a person who's been that powerful. So Khan started fighting with Khumalo, and he will come to me and complain about Khumalo. I will ask Khumalo. Khumalo will simply say, Khan's appointment is this post, which is support. The only thing I'm asking him to do is to go back to his post. He doesn't want to, because Gerald Jacobs had moved him, or before that, he had moved him away from there to counterintelligence. Counterintelligence is where activities are happening. And he wants to stay there because that's where the investigation of these hijacking, kidnappings, drugs are happening. So he wants to be there. But the fight with Khumalo is only about the position. That he doesn't want to be here, he wants to be there. So Khan remains a person that causes a lot of issues to date at crime intelligence. In the past, it was not him. There were many others. But at this present moment, it is him, the key player. And we believe it is Khan that influenced IDEC to behave in the manner they behave. Yes, others might have come in. For your information, at one stage, Khan, if I'm not mistaken, no, not Khan. Someone presented here that Atis Mkhwanazi, who said, I had myself and Gerald Cele facilitated a tender for one company in KZN to be issued tender, and that is Magma Security. That's when I realized, after reading that, and I said, okay, now it's clear. Mkhwanazi is just an information peddler. He gets told by Kat about our meeting, but he thinks the meeting is in the Provincial Commissioner's house. He doesn't know where the meeting is. He claimed to have been following Matlala for that. He hears things about this, he claims it's his. He hears things about Thabo Bester, for instance. He claims he was part of the Thabo Bester. So he claims a lot of things, Mkhwanazi. One of the things he claims is this one of magma security. Then when I saw that, beside me having received WhatsApp messages from Mkhwanazi on discussions of crime intelligence, that only person within crime intelligence can share that, Mkhwanazi writing to me and say, Khan is going to update me. It became clear that Khan is a big player in crime intelligence. Now I know him and the Inspector General are very tight. Now, Khan here, I was talking about the issue of magma security as an example. I'm going to wrap up quickly. When I arrived in KZN to come and act in 2018, I did not know magma security. Khan introduced me to magma security. And when I met with magma security, and he was breaking about what they're doing, that they are helping with CIT cases and many other cases in the country. And I happened to see ex-police officers that are now working for this magma security. And when I arrived there, places layer was in the news, a lot of murders. Magma security showed me the whole chart of the syndicate that's operating places layer. We're able to deal with those criminals thanks to that magma security. So I built a relationship with that magma security from that day. Now, Khan knows their capabilities. He knows what they're capable of doing. So I believe, thinks that a lot of things maybe that are happening are assisted by magma security. They are a good team. I must say, sometimes they provide information more than what I get from intelligence. And being a private sector, it is Khan that is introducing. So in intelligence and almost everything happening in their intelligence, Khan is in a center. So I was trying to indicate that the regulations are changed, it's Khan. The member of parliament, Mr. Adams, runs around all these other places to open cases. He said to you here, he decided to go to Soweto because he loves Soweto. Soweto is hundreds of kilometers away from both airports, Lanzera or Tambo. He had no reason to say he's going to Soweto. I can tell you. He went to Orlando because there is a member of crime intelligence in Orlando that works with Khan, that walked with him to a police station to go and open a case. One of the ROC members, the member that is in the list of the people that Ket Matlala paid for to come to the January 8th statement. As we see the evidence from Matlala's bill that Mkhwanazi gave him, he said, these are the people who must book their flights. That Kenel is in that list. And it's a Kenel that works with Khan like this. And it's no mistake, I'm presiding over a case against Khan of drugs and Gauteng. In that case, I cleared him because the people that were wrong, that arrived there, that I felt that the organization should have dealt with, they were not dealt with, but they were dealing with Khan. But what was strange in the testimony is that, Honorable Chair, a member of Flying Squad in Soweto, after learning of what's happening in Eratin, that member decided to phone Khan to come to the scene. Khan arrived in the scene being mobilized by a member from Flying Squad who works in Joburg. Why did that member choose Khan of all the people to come and attend the drug issues? I said to you, and I'm saying it again, big consignment of drugs were found there. Khan left it with the PCI. The question remains, did all those drugs arrive at forensic? Were all those drugs destroyed? The modus operandi can tell you. Don't steal on the crime scene. Take it. En route to forensic, we swap it. When it gets there, it's diluted, and the forensic analyst will test only 10% of it. So you might be clear of not having done wrong, but you know you're going to benefit out of this same thing. So in all what is happening that we see nowadays, honorable members, information lending with the honorable members from crime intelligence, it comes from that office that still has Gerald Khan in the mix. I don't know why it does not have a security clearance. You asked me earlier. It still doesn't have, but it's there. So it's majority of the things that I feel, the not filling of the vacancies directive of the minister, it is because Khan wants to dictate who must control where. Because these are senior positions of crime intelligence. If they are filled by Kumalo, they won't have control over them.
I just have one last question on Khan, because we've seen Khan's name come up
Can we
in.
take the follow-up from Honorable Cameron?
Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, Advocate. Apologies, Chair. I'll be very quick. The first one, just for the record, General, you said it was Major General Khan that was promoted overnight. Was there any, wasn't there another one? They were both promoted overnight, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not 100% sure, but what I know, what angered the Minister Mbalula at the time, Khan's name was the one that popped up. I don't know who else might have been promoted at the time, but I'm
And-
sure the organization can provide that information.
And well, I can qualify it with both General Khan and General Moodley. What was their relationship with Richard Mdluli at the time?
Honorable Chair and members, I cannot tell. Khan at the time was junior, the time of Moodley, but Moodley was a general already in KZN, the time of Moodley. So at the time of Mdluli. So I really don't know the relationship, but what I became aware of is that they were operating in opposite directions.
Okay.
They were in different camps, the two of them. They didn't get along very well. I don't know now whether they are colluding somehow, but from what I heard is that they were in different camps.
Thank you, Chair.
My closing question, Chair.
Yeah, it must be the last.
Yes, Chair. General, you mentioned Khan's disciplinary hearing, and we've heard it from Mr. Adams. Honorable Adams has spoken about General Khan's disciplinary hearings. We've heard it from Brown Mkhwanazi as well, and we've seen in the WhatsApp chats that Mkhwanazi and Matlala were also talking about General Khan, and there was reference that money should be asked from Khan. Are you aware of a relationship between General Khan, Mr. Mkhwanazi, Mr. Matlala, and to a certain extent, Honorable Adams? I mean, he mentioned, and I don't know if he just happened to have known about the disciplinary hearing or whether he has a certain relationship with General Khan.
Look, in the relationship between Khan and Mkhwanazi, other than the messages that Mkhwanazi gave me, sent to me, which in some of those messages, he had presentation of classified information from crime intelligence, where crime intelligence were presenting their policies. So he took a screenshot, or there was a screenshot taken from there and was sent to Mkhwanazi. Mkhwanazi then sent it to me, that screenshot. When I asked him more details about that, Mkhwanazi told me that Khan will brief me. So that's how I got to know that means Mkhwanazi and Khan are in talks. Other than that, I don't know much about their relationship. The other relationship, but again, this one is suspicion, it's not confirmed with anything other than what the Chief of Staff, Kabinde, told me. He said, Khan has been trying to get to the minister, but he has not been allowing him. But Khan found a way of using Mkhwanazi to get to the minister. That was when I asked Kabinde, who is Mkhwanazi? And then Kabinde told me, no, he's a person who's close to the minister. That's how Khan got into the minister through Mkhwanazi. So that's all what I heard about the relationship. Between Ket Matlala and Khan, I don't know anything except what I heard from Mkhwanazi, from Matlala himself, saying that he used to give Khan money as well. But Khan was demanding money. He was not just giving him because he didn't done something to him. He was always demanding money, that he must give him money. But again, it came from Matlala. I cannot necessarily come and be 100% sure about that. The Khan and, you said it's Mkhwanazi and Khan and?
I asked about Honorable Adams.
Or Honorable Adams.
Yeah, because you've mentioned him here.
What I know between Mr. Khan and Honorable Adams is that where we connected first was this case open in Orlando. That's where we connected. And we connected Mr. Adams with Mkhwanazi because the person that Mr. Adams went to see in Orlando is the same person that Mkhwanazi flew down here. That's where we connected them. But beyond that, it's the visits that have been happening at the Inspector General of Intelligence by Mr. Adams and Khan visiting there. That's how we got to know the relationship between the two of them. Those are the relationships that I could confirm that I know of between them. Other than that, Honorable Chair members, there will be a lot of connection from members of crime intelligence with other players that might be associated with Mr. Adams. I made mention earlier of Mr. Adams having traveled to KZN, the facilitation and the whole trip, how it came about. It involves people from this intelligence community and the police.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So